Trapped in a New York City gone mad and hunted by Mayan blood gods, Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson will need to come together and put their differences aside if they ever hope to survive. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 22 and find out together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue left off, things had gotten very weird when Dr. Rabin, a mostly forgotten Spider-Man foe from the past, had returned to New York City, draped in a tornado and out for revenge on Mary Jane and Peter, both of whom ended up disappearing when mysterious Mayan marks on their arms activated. We see how this is affecting Norman, and it's heavily implied that he actually knows more about what actually happened with Peter and MJ than he's been letting on, saying that his assistant needs to go and collect Mary Jane and her family for safekeeping. Also, hey, Ms. Marvel Kamala Khan is here too, and she's messing around with Norman's Gold Goblin suit trying to get some information about what's going on for herself. Of course, none of this story is about them, it's all about Peter and MJ. As I said, at the end of the last issue, they were spirited away somewhere. And as we read further on in this issue, we discover that this place isn't some alternate Earth or alternate dimension, it's actually just a year in the past? But wait, if it's only a year ago, why is everything in New York destroyed, and why are they being hunted by crazy Mayan dragon creatures? There's 12 months in a year, and there's 6 months wherein a bunch of stuff happened that caused Mary Jane and Peter to drift apart from each other that they've yet to explain. Is this in that time period? It is my job to know the answers to this question. I'm gonna be a man and just come out and admit it. I am as confused as anyone else right now, and I'm only gonna get more confused as the issue goes on. Spider-Man does everything in his power to protect MJ from these crazy Mayan creatures, but ultimately both of them end up getting saved by a mysterious hooded individual who doffs his hood to reveal he's none other than Paul, the mystery man of whom Mary Jane is living with and seemingly has kids with. In fact, things only get weirder too, because Mary Jane and Peter aren't shocked at all to see Paul right here, right now. He says that their coming was foretold by the emissary, basically the new crazy name that Dr. Rabin took for himself. Peter also doesn't bother putting his mask on in front of Paul, implying that he may have already known that Spider-Man and Peter Parker were the same person, which absolutely does my head in, because you think he would be shocked to find out this fact, but he's not. If nothing else though, this issue does finally go out of its way to actually for once explain who the hell Paul is and what his deal is. Or maybe at least just this version of him in this weird, maybe alternate past. Again, you're gonna have to follow me on this one. As Paul tells it, he was actually a scientific colleague of Dr. Rabin, one of the people working with him to use advanced AI technology to try and uncover the deep hidden secrets within a bunch of old Mayan blood runes. They felt they had made some truly amazing scientific breakthroughs, and soon enough they were going to get to the bottom of how to use these symbols to help shape reality, because guess what? They're not just regular symbols, they're totems, something Spider-Man knows a fair amount about. Unfortunately for both Rabin and Paul, it turns out their research was actually only being guided by the hand of the YF, an evil Mayan god who hoped to use their research to create a portal for himself into the prime material world. Again, you know, classic evil god stuff. Spider-Man had actually ever so briefly met the YF all the way back in Spider-Man number 555, so he knows how much of a jerk he is. Using his big science brain too, Peter is able to riddle out that all the symbology that Rabin and Paul were working with are actually shockingly similar to the technological components inside Spider-Man's multiversal travel device, you know, the thing that he uses to get involved in all those Spider-Verse storylines. Because, you know, this is the Marvel universe where technology and magic are ultimately not that different, they're just advanced systems that people give different names and meanings to, but it's all that classic chariot of the gods stuff. Long story short, Peter thinks that if he can tinker with his teleporter just enough, maybe he can get him and MJ back home where it's safe, or at least safer. And then the book really throws me for a loop because we check on in with Rabin, but wait, I thought he was in that tornado in the present, unless he's there and here now. His god, the YF, tears strips out of him for failing the ceremony, but Rabin says that he has a plan to make it all right. He's come with not one but two sacrifices to slaughter in the name of the YF, but also something called the Sun-Blooded, which again, they leave purposely open-ended about who exactly he's talking about, if he means that Peter is the Sun-Blooded, or if Mary Jane could actually be the Sun-Blooded. Also, despite Dr. Rabin saying that he's the one who was going to make this all right, the YF actually ends up attacking Spider-Man, Mary Jane, and Paul in their little hidey hole. And no, don't bother asking how he knew where exactly to find them. He's a lesser Mayan god. He has many, many powers, don't you know? This battle goes from zero to bloody incredibly quickly. Spider-Man fights valiantly to protect Mary Jane and Paul, even saying that they should activate their device and send Mary Jane home now. Of course, Mary Jane won't have that and says that the world needs Spider-Man more than it needs her. Because of that, she ends up activating the device on Peter, which opens up a portal back home. Only here's the thing, the sheer force of the portal opening up also just so happens to cut the Y-Ep in half. And because he's a god, he doesn't die easily, he dies very loudly and very colorfully. As the comic comes to a close, Spider-Man ends up hurling through the portal to parts and times unknown. Well, okay, that's not totally true. He apparently ends up overshooting New York by a good margin and instead going to Pennsylvania. He also picks up a fair amount of speed and energy too. I have to figure when he lands, he's going to end up creating a massive crater, maybe, just maybe. And so that was Amazing Spider-Man issue number 22, everybody. And while I was ultimately pretty kind to the previous issue because I felt like we were actually getting some real deal forward momentum for a change, this one I couldn't help but feel got a little incomprehensible and a little hard to follow at times. Oh, make no mistake, we're still getting answers to questions, and they're certainly asking more questions. But the sad truth is the specter of all this just being too little too late is really hard to avoid. Yes, we learned some stuff about Paul, but unfortunately Paul still isn't much of a character. He's a storytelling device. He's a mystery man who's supposed to drive you to keep coming back in hopes that they will answer the questions and make him all the less mysterious, even though mystery is the only thing he has going for him. Also, I don't do a lot of theory craft on the channel, but now that we're involving a bunch of time jumping in this Spider-Man story, I feel like I may have already figured out the end of this story. Peter is probably gonna have to try and fight to get Mary Jane back into the modern day, but turns out she was left with Paul for so long the two actually ended up falling in love and maybe having kids. I certainly hope I'm wrong, but if I was a betting man, that is what I would put my money on. Overall, I'd probably give this one another 7 out of 10. Stuff is happening for once. Stuff really actually is happening. It's just not stuff I'm sure I like.
Hey there everyone, Kate Joel again, and I just want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. It means a lot to me. And hey, if you enjoyed the book I covered in this issue and want some comics of your own, might I recommend Book Depository? It's my #1 place for shopping for comic book trades. You get a great price, and if you use my link down in the description, you'll actually be helping me out at the same time. You get something, I get something, everybody wins, right? So until next time everyone, I've been Joel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.